The Underground Highway by Richard Elsliger. It is said that an underground highway exists, a parallel universe of sorts that mirrors the human world of concrete and asphalt above. Others call it a supernatural realm, more than a highway, a realm that no living creature can ever encounter without dire consequences. Either way, many speak of the underground highway, but no one can ever lay a legitimate claim that they ever drove it. Some might make up a drunken story sitting at a seedy bar one night that they drove the underground highway, but anyone in the know is well aware that anyone who ends up on the underground highway never returns. For all of the people who go missing in the United States every year, it is believed that a number of them went missing when they made that fateful wrong turn and ended up driving the underground highway. These people will never come back. Of course, that is the talk of legends. No one in this day and age really believes in such silly superstitions, do they? I consider myself fully scientific, with about a 5% variance that I allow for superstition, but no more. It all depends on the type of day in which you find me. I like to keep an open mind, therefore this small and mostly rare deviation from rational thought I will allow myself from time to time in the way I view the world. Part of the legend claims that you must drive at night through dense fog to access this highway. Not the most common of combined conditions, but it does happen. Dense fog at night, for reasons unknown, presents a point of access to the supposed underground highway. Rarer still, it is said according to legend that the access gateway only opens on the 29th day of February, the leap year day, seldom seen itself, but for every 4 years as dictated by our calendar. If one were to say live to the age of 80, then one would experience the leap year day a paltry sum of only 20 times over the course of that life. This means that once every 4 years, the living can be subject to this unfortunate detour from reality, but only if the exact conditions are present. When all of the conditions are met, it is then that motorists can become disoriented and make wrong moves that get them to a dark, one-way tunnel leading to this damnable highway. So it is said. Therefore, most in the know will shy away from driving through dense fog, particularly if that fog is at night, and more especially if it occurs on February 29th. The underground highway can happen anywhere in this plane of existence. There are reports of the phenomenon around the world. Most people are unaware of the highway or simply don't believe in it. One might question how anyone even knows of such a highway, considering those who drove it never returned to tell about it. That is where logic ends and superstition begins. Much like death, no one really knows what exists on the other side, the exception being those having a near-death experience who come back to speak of bright lights, long-departed relatives, and dead friends who greet them. The only anecdotal evidence of such an underground highway exists from folklore, passed down from the occasional seance testimony from those who crossed over. Truth is, there is no hard proof. There are those who actively seek out the underground highway, tempting the legend, and they engage in reckless behavior according to those who believe. Today, I found myself out of town on a business assignment. Spring was in the air early, so I chose to take my car out of storage and run her through the gears. All things mechanical, and more particularly cars, despise sitting out the winter months, so now was an opportune moment to run some fuel through the arteries and stretch the proverbial legs of my old roadster. The meeting was set in a small town far outside of the big city, and I drove the old girl a good 100 miles with the top down, feeling the wind rush over the windshield, tousling my hair. I parked her in an underground garage on the outskirts of town and decided to walk my way to the meeting. Small town life has a certain appeal to it, I might say. Coming from the big city, I admire the coziness of smaller towns where everyone appears friendlier. It feels like stepping back in time, seeing small shops plying their wares. Even the brickwork of such shops looks as if it were torn from the pages of the 1950s, with fading paint schemes and old, sometimes out-of-date messages, yet quaint. I breathed in the fresh air and imagined a different life than my current circumstance. I finished the meeting late, meaning that early evening was upon me. I decided on a local restaurant for one last small-town experience before I left behind what might have been my life, yet one day could become my life. I didn't know much about the town, but the restaurant looked inviting enough. I entered the establishment and took a seat next to a large saltwater fish tank. The playful dance of clownfish and seahorses occupied my attention. I watched their intricate maneuvers for a good 5 minutes until I heard a voice amid the usual background noise of the restaurant, seemingly directed toward me. I ignored the voice, the fish maintaining my rapt attention. I felt a tap on my shoulder, making me flinch in my seat. I turned to see the server. He looked a bit apologetic for the intrusion. I asked him to give me a few more minutes. I took my focus away from the fish and perused the menu in depth. So many choices sent me innumerable ways, pointing the many directions toward my culinary delight. I finally settled in on a turkey breast sandwich and fries, of all things. This restaurant gave the impression of a high-scale establishment, and I could have ordered a steak and baked potato with tiramisu for dessert. My intense hunger, combined with my typical, more pedestrian tastes, governed my decision, as it mostly does, and I waited for the server's return. I placed my order and resumed watching the saltwater entertainment. I'd not owned a saltwater fish tank, but always wanted one. I understood them to be high maintenance. Perhaps I would get one for my apartment, I mused, all in good time. My order arrived without delay, and the food proved exquisite. The fries made a delightful crunch, and the ketchup lit my taste buds like striking a match. The turkey breast layered the triple-decker sourdough bread, thinly sliced meat exploding from every side, and condiments so thick they oozed from the very pores of the sandwich. Each bite ignited like an atomic bomb of flavor, giving definition to the fresh-cut tomatoes, lettuce, onions, and honey mustard. The sandwich demolished my hunger, and the sourdough bread proved to be the right conduit for sending my pleasure neurons into a feeding frenzy. I labeled such food as death penalty food, a description I reserve only for the best-tasting meal I might consider to be my last supper on earth. I finished my food and ordered a slice of tiramisu with coffee. I dallied on my dessert, watching the saltwater entertainment next to me. I lost track of time, and already I could see the blackness of night through the curtains, the twilight long since gone. Not only blackness did I see between the curtains, but also a white, misty fog formation rolling in. This gave me pause. I drank my coffee in one gulp and asked for the bill. I tipped my server well and indicated to him the degree to which I enjoyed the food and gave assurance that I would frequent this establishment again should the call for business find me here once more. I headed out of the restaurant and noticed a fine mist descending from the heavens, obscuring my range of vision to the point that I had trouble finding the parking garage that housed my car. Having a good sense of direction led me to my ride, and I entered the garage. I jumped in my roadster, fired her up, and drove to the exit, paying the automated toll booth and watching the gate rise by the invisible hand of automation. I mused how our ancestors might have regarded such technology and scoffed at them, knowing they more likely would believe it to be a ghostly hand that moved the gate and not a series of wires, circuitry, and mechanical levers. I pulled forward, leaving behind the garage, and signaled to turn right. I hit the brake hard and blasted my horn. Another car came charging from my left side and kept on going as if I were invisible. Damn, this fog was bad. I should have left the restaurant earlier. I cursed myself for getting wrapped up in the food, the saltwater fish experience, and the relaxing ambience of the establishment, much to my regret now. I exercised due caution while navigating out of town, feeling a twinge of regret as I headed for the highway back to my austere, big city life. A good 100-mile drive home unfurled before me, and this damn fog would be my constant companion. I talked myself into believing that once I got on the open highway, the fog might thin out and blow away, as it sometimes does on the wider 4-lane throughways. I took several side roads in a zigzag pattern that led me to the interstate. I merged at a good clip, noting the paucity of cars on this throughway. I drove a good 10 miles and saw not one car traveling in either direction. I laughed, thinking perhaps the legend of the underground highway kept the motorists at bay. The fools, I thought. At least their absence allowed me to open up the throttle a bit and do some high-skilled speeding. I turned on the radio to listen to some tunes, hoping a few good songs might keep me company with the hum of the road beneath my tires. I was making good time. At some point, the announcer came on and gave the weather report. Good, I thought. Maybe I'll get some news on how much longer this fog might last, or at least for what distance. I was bound to drive out of it at some point. The weather reporter gave dire warnings that in fact the fog is expected to persist throughout the night, reaching its highest density around midnight. I checked the clock on the dash. Damn it! I could not have asked for worse driving conditions. Damn, damn, damn! I left the restaurant too late. I attempted to reassure myself. At least the roads were clear of traffic and ice. And then the reporter mentioned words I did not want to hear. She wished everyone a happy birthday today and told them that they were very special and unique, the true immortals of our time, because they only aged 1 year for every 4, and today was that day. The words chilled me. I already knew today's date. I knew it beforehand. How could I not? My meeting happened today, and I always calendared my meetings well ahead of time. That cursed date. Yet the idea of running into danger never even occurred to me. The legends of the ridiculous underground highway casually dismissed by my rational brain. Besides, what were the odds all conditions would be met, and more specifically encountered by me? The foggy situation made driving a challenge, even treacherous, but the thought that tonight was February 29th, and it was black as tar in the heavens, made my mind drift toward darker thoughts. The 9 circles of hell came to mind, if one believes such nonsense. From all appearances, it certainly looked as if I'd won the Triple Crown tonight, the thickness of fog, the blackness of night, and the leap year date all converging, descending, pressing down upon me. What were the odds? I always scoffed at the superstitions, an easy thing to do when done from a comfortable office chair, when one was not mired in such dire circumstances. Now, those 5 small percentage points of superstition started to kick in the further I drove. My steering wheel became a tad slippery in my hands. I dried my palms with a tissue and motored on. If anything untoward were to happen to me, tonight would be that night. My rational side struggled to control the reins of my darkest thoughts, and when I reasoned it out, I knew that my primeval fear was irrational. I took aim at the jittery dotted highway line, the only real pathfinder out of this damned situation. Before long, the fog thickened to the extent that the highway line disappeared. I had an unusual and nauseating sensation, a twisting feeling in my stomach, a feeling as if riding an amusement park roller coaster, one that turned on a dime and barrel rolled in corkscrew fashion. My hair began to stand on end, and the flesh of my face started to lift. My blood rushed to my head in torrents. I had the sensation of being upside down, twisting, turning, spinning. My roadster's lap belt held me in place, and I thanked my lucky stars for it. In an instant I was out of it, the fog finally disappearing, allowing me to better assess my situation. I was on a different road. The consistent buzz of my tires over the asphalt ceased. I reasoned that the asphalt must have changed in texture to suppress my tire noise. I knew that the best asphalt incorporated tire rubber and various byproducts to minimize road noise and give the motorist the sensation of driving on liquid ball bearings. This was not the same road from minutes before. It didn't feel right. This road shot out toward nothingness, my headlight high beams unable to make out any landmarks ahead of me. I saw no reference points, no road signs, no steady omnipresent guardrail, no dotted white lines that separated the lanes of traffic, no road shoulder, no grass or trees. I saw nothing. Where am I? Deep down inside I knew damn well where I was, but fear kept me from uttering the words. I fumbled with the radio because the signal dropped. Static blared from the speaker, but in the undercurrent of that white noise I thought I heard faraway voices. Panicked, I wanted to pull off the road, but found no place to pull over. I had no viable option other than to keep the pedal down and keep momentum. If I stopped in the middle of this road, I risked serious injury, maybe death should another vehicle come out of the darkness and hit me at full speed. No, I must keep going. City lights would inevitably make known their presence. It was only a matter of time and distance traveled. I looked at my odometer for reference, attempting to calculate my miles traversed, but my odometer had set itself to 0 right across the 5-digit line. I stared down at the odometer with incredulity. The numbers remained frozen. This was a 1952 Jaguar, an XK120 open top, and I knew the exact mileage of this car right down to the last digit before I left home, an unusual idiosyncrasy of mine, I must admit, but not unheard of in the collector car world. Such a weird glitch that I could only attribute to a mechanical failing. This was a thing that needed fixing when I got home. When I looked at the speedometer, it spun like a propeller in its bezel, turning clockwise with such rapidity that I could barely discern the needle. The tachometer behaved in similar fashion, spinning maniacally within its concentricity. Other gauges jittered within their tolerances, as if possessed by electrical gremlins from the underworld. I looked more closely at the gauges and swear I saw miniature gremlins pushing the needles back and forth in a playful game, evil imps determined to crack my sanity. They stared back at me with devilish grins and terrified me as these specters defied all natural laws. I hit the brake as hard as I could to dislodge these fiendish demons, but my brake pedal went right to the floor. Shocked at the possibility of an uncontrollable vehicle, I attempted steering side to side in order to scrub off speed and bring down the velocity of my careening car. The steering proved unresponsive to my inputs no matter how hard I turned the wheel lock to lock, the Jaguar sprinting ahead like a crazy cat that lost its mind. I let my foot off the accelerator, thinking this might slow down my runaway car. I witnessed no reduction in speed. This can't last, I told myself in uncertain words, trying to placate the uncontrollable horror rising inside me. There must be city lights ahead, some sign of civilization. The blood rush to my head subsided, and I settled into my bucket seat, me, my Jaguar, and a black road of indeterminate length and origin, taking me on a trip to where I knew not. I wanted to leap from my speeding car, jump out and get away, but my seatbelt held me fast and prevented me from unclasping the buckle. I resigned to my situation, unable to stop, unable to course correct, unable to affect the speed, forever stuck on the underground highway. My radio came on with static discharges and said in a muffled, throaty voice, "Welcome to eternity."